readers, and welcome back to my channel Author Uncovered. I'm Katie Ward and I'm an award-winning self-published author. My debut novel, The Pretender, became a top 30 YA bestseller on Amazon, and I've also contributed to the first ever Writers and Artists Guide to Self-Publishing, published by Bloomsbury Press in March 2020. And I have also just today got through the post something else to add to my little CV there, and it is a contribution to the Indie Brag cookbook. So what that means, I'll put that there for you, you can have a little look, is that this is a recipe that has been inspired by my book, The Pretender. The special thing about the recipe that's featured in this book for The Pretender is that it actually was created for me by my friend, who is a French food writer, based on a dish that my characters order in the book. So that was really important to me because it means that my readers are able to create a dish from my actual book. So in today's video, I want to give you a little more information on my debut novel, The Pretender. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll have seen me talk a lot about my debut novel. So in this video, I want to take you inside and give you a little more insight into what the story is about, how I came to write it, and what makes it so special. The Pretender comes from a classic story written by Mark Twain by the name of The Prince and the Pauper. It is a modern day adaptation of that story. And this was one of my favourite stories from when I was a child, and I read it when I was around 10 years old. I absolutely loved it. It also was a film. I think there's a 1960s film that is still the classic Prince and the Pauper story that I used to watch when I was a kid. It resonated very much with me from a young age. However, around 2015, I had kind of remembered about The Prince and the Pauper as a story, and I wanted to read it again. And I went to a bookshop and I couldn't find it. It was not on sale anymore. And I thought how sad that really was that, you know, this great story just isn't around anymore. And the language in it is extremely difficult. It's not Old English, but it's quite antiquated English. Now, even if you're not familiar with the story of The Prince and the Pauper, I guarantee you there is one part you will absolutely know, because it has been replicated in books and movies and TV series for years and years and years. That is the part where the Prince and the Pauper switch places. This has been the one part of this book that has been adapted time and time and time again. But if you read the full book, you will see that this is only a tiny part of the story. But because that is the dramatic part of the story, that is what people have focused on when they wanted to take parts of it. And I felt that it was really sad that people didn't know the real story for The Prince and the Pauper, because there's a lot about social justice. You know, Mark Twain was trying to make a real statement about class and about people's perceptions based on what class they think you are. So he took the prince, the epitome of class, and he switched them with the pauper. And that completely changed the dynamic. And if you think in 18th century England, when class was everything, that was quite a powerful aspect for him to have done. He was making a really strong statement about how we treat people based on material factors other than what their character are. And I really, really like that. And I think it's something that really still is very relevant today. So I chose to adapt The Prince and the Pauper, not just the switch element, but to be faithful to the entire story and to actually modernize the whole story and to bring it back to a brand new audience. So that's where the idea for me to write The Pretender came from. But in order for it to be a good adaptation, it has to also be a completely different story. An adaptation isn't about copying an old story. It's about taking elements from that story and weaving them into a completely new story. And this is something I think I've done well with The Pretender, and I'm really pleased about. It's something that's come through in the reviews, that this doesn't read like a story people have already read. It reads like a brand new story. So let me tell you a little bit more about The Pretender, where it's set, and the characters that make it so special. The Pretender is set in France, and the reason for that is that France has no monarchy. It was abolished in the 1700s after the French Revolution, but it does have a very strong history in terms of monarchies, and it still has that line of succession. So I did a lot of research when writing The Pretender to make sure that everything within my book was historically accurate. So Princess Isabella of Bourbon is the line of monarchy that was left vacant by Marie Antoinette when the monarchy was abolished. And if they were a monarchy today, that would be their official surname. The residence of where Isabella lives in France is in Fontainebleau Palace. That is the exact residence of the French monarchy in the days when it was a monarchy. And also the church that they use is also the church that they did actually use. So I kept all of the historical facts correct when creating the monarchy so that I can reimagine, and people reading it, both France and further afield, can imagine what it would be like if they still did have a monarchy. And because they do have that history of a monarchy, it fits really nicely and it creates a little nostalgia of what might have been. The story starts as the original does, with the births of our two main characters. We have Princess Isabella and Sophia. Princess Isabella is born to the French royal family and she is the first in line to the throne. Sophia is born to parents that don't want her, they don't love her, they are drug addicts, they are alcoholics. She comes from a completely different lifestyle to Isabella. Whereas Isabella is loved and cherished, Sophia is abused and is not loved in the slightest by her parents. So immediately the juxtaposition between these two characters is made abundantly clear. The one thing that might surprise you about The Pretender is that in most books where we discuss the monarchy, or most TV shows that you see where we might have this switch element between the characters, is that the monarchy is revered as something to aspire to. We all want to be princesses, right? But this book is very different. This book isn't about romanticizing monarchy, it's about making it more realistic. And Isabella is a reluctant princess. She definitely doesn't want to be queen. She wants freedom. She wants to go and be normal. She wants to go and explore Paris. She wants to live away from home, but she's stuck. She's in line to the throne. She has to learn to be royal and to prepare her for her role as queen. And she can't stand it. She hates it. And when she isn't given any freedom at all, she finds it so stifling, and it creates in her a lot of issues that make her hate where she's from, hate what she does, and not want to be queen and want to run away. One of the main themes in The Pretender is that of friendship. Yes, it does have love and it does have romance, but the friendships that occur between my characters is what really makes this special. Now, that's not me telling you this. That's what the feedback from my readers has been, that this is what they love the most about it. They also like that there is a real theme of consequence that runs through this story. The princess and the pauper, they meet. It seems a great idea to switch places. When you obviously come to read it, you'll understand that the pauper is seeking security and the princess is seeking freedom. They have the key to each other's happiness, or so they think. We've all come across situations in our life where we've done something at the time that seemed like the best idea in the world. And as we've gone on, we've realised that perhaps it was something we should have best avoided. And this is the journey that my characters take within The Pretender. They make this action and the consequences unveil themselves as we go through the story, and they have to deal with it, and they have to see things in a different way. They have to deal with uncomfortable truths, and they have to learn about themselves in a way that they never would have been able to do if they hadn't put themselves in that situation. I keep very much the elements that Mark Twain was trying to build in his story, because he very much wanted the prince to go through a certain journey, to see things in a different way that he wouldn't have been able to had he stayed within the fold of the royal family. And I too have that journey for my princess. Isabella is enlightened in the same way that the prince is enlightened in The Prince and the Pauper, because that was such a crucial element, and it's such a beautiful element to have someone that is in a situation where you're revered and you're lauded for nothing more than your birthright, and taking that person out of that situation and letting them see life and everything that goes with it and all of the troubles that we have through the eyes of someone who no one cares about, if you like. Because how much attention do you give to the person that walks past you on the street? When would you bow down and start curtsying to a random person that you walk past in the street? You just wouldn't do it, because they are just like you and me. But in a royal family, that would not be the case. You would never ever treat anyone in a royal setting like just one of us. You would probably be thrown out if you did that. So it completely changes the dynamic for our characters when you take the princess away from that lifestyle, when she isn't revered and no one's willing to fall over her because she's royal. And when you put a pauper, someone who isn't used to being treated like that, in that setting, it's a really interesting dynamic. And within The Prince and the Pauper, they never really went into detail into what that would actually mean, because a royal family doesn't sit behind closed doors. So my pauper is standing in for a princess, but that's not just to the royal family. She is also standing in to the eyes of the world. One of the questions I get asked from people who have read The Pretender is why I chose to have a child abuse element. And the reason for that is the original has a child abuse element too. However, it isn't presented as child abuse, because in the 1800s, the standard of child abuse was a lot lower than what we have today. So for instance, there's a part within the original story that states that the pauper can't go home because he hasn't made enough money, and if he goes home empty-handed, his grandmother will beat him. Now, in today's standards, that is child abuse. However, in the 1800s, it was only child abuse if you killed the child. So in 1800s, it was perfectly legal for you to beat your child senseless as long as you didn't kill them. So when I first read the story, that element came across very strongly to me, and that is why I have chosen to have a child abuse element within this story, and also because it affects a lot of children in our society today. Child abuse is still rampant, unfortunately, and a lot of work goes into trying to prevent that. I work closely with the safeguarding team within my day job, and it's the most soul-destroying thing. And as an adult, I look back to my school life and I realise the children that were being abused at school that I never realised at the time, because obviously you have no understanding. And so I wanted to have this element so that maybe children might be able to recognise those children who come from really difficult backgrounds, who might be facing abuse in the way that my character does. Because as a child, you just have no understanding that anyone comes from a life other than your own. And if you come from a happy life, like I did, then everybody comes from a happy life. And looking back, I feel very saddened that I couldn't see that not everybody came from a happy life. So one of the things that has always really irritated me ever since I was quite small is when I've watched films or heard songs or read books where it pretty much portrays the woman as not being able to live without a man. This irritates me no end. I mean, we've all heard the song. Mariah Carey sang that song where I can't live if living is without you. Please, you have done your whole life without this person. So the 5 minutes that they have been in your life, how does that equate to you not being able to live your entire life without them when you already have? It just makes no sense to me. So when I came to write The Pretender, I wanted to make sure I did not fall into that trap. I don't think that there was a big risk of me falling into that trap given how much it annoys me, but it was very important for me to have a very female-focused book. There are guys in it that are very, very lovely, and those characters are glorious. You will absolutely love them, but They don't come in saving the day, and they don't come and solve everything for the woman because they're so unable to cope for themselves. The thing about the pretender is that these women are more than able to cope by themselves. They might not know it in the beginning, but they find that about themselves as they go through the journey. And that's one of the things that I'm really happy about. And one of the things I love most about this book is that the women are strong on their own right. They don't need a man to make them strong. They have strength within themselves. They have strengths within their friendship. And together they are such a formidable force. And that is such an empowering and great signal for young women out there who are trying to find their own kind of place in the world too. And so I'm really happy with how that has come out. So now I've told you a bit about The Pretender and about the story and how it came about. I want to give you a few screenshots of the reviews that I've received so that you can kind of see how people have related to it, how much they've liked it and what they've had to say about it. Because like I said, it doesn't mean much coming from me, I'm the author, but I want to show you what other people have said too. So to end this video, I want to read you an extract from my novel The Pretender, and this extract comes from the first time Sophia and Isabella meet. I hope you enjoy it. The cool summer air surrounds me as I hurry towards the palace gates before someone can stop me. I've no idea what I'll do when I'm on the other side of the gates, but I don't care. I want my freedom, and I won't take no for an answer. I'm an adult, aren't I? Surely I get to make my own decisions now. Just as I reach the gates, however, I see an unexpected sight. A slumped figure lies sobbing in front of them. I approach gingerly. "Are you okay?" I ask. The figure quickly rises, wiping away the tears before turning around to face me. I see that it's a frightened-looking girl around the same age as me. "No, not really, I'm sorry. I had nowhere else to go, and this felt like the safest place to come." The girl seems sincere. "Don't apologise," I say, not wanting to see her cry. "Why do you have nowhere left to go? Can't you go home?" "Home? No, my father kicked me out." She pulls up her sleeve, and even in the shadows I can make out the angry bruises covering her arms. "That's dreadful, you poor thing. Wait there one moment and I'll get someone to open the gates." I rush off and get help, feeling a buzz of excitement as to who this stranger could be. I return with a guard who dutifully opens the gates to let her in. "Thank you, Michelle," I tell him. "You may leave us now." "As you wish, Your Royal Highness." The guard walks off as instructed. "Isabella? Are you Princess Isabella?" the girl asks, her eyes wide. "Yes, that's right. Now I've got a slight confession. You see, I climbed out of my bedroom window, so we'll need to get back in that way. Are you good at climbing?" Immediately she responds with, "Well, I'm always up for a challenge, let's put it that way, Your Highness." I smile at the stranger's response. We manage to haul ourselves back up into the bedroom before I pull up the homemade rope and unknot it all again. It's hard since the knots have grown tight from the strain of our weight. "Here, let me do that for you," the girl offers. I notice she doesn't use my royal title this time, which I like. She deftly untangles the items and proceeds to put the duvet and sheet back on my bed. "Sorry, forgive my manners," I say. "I haven't asked your name." "My name is Sophia, Sophia Lazarus." "Sophia's a pretty name, it suits you. Please take a seat. Now, Sophia Lazarus, let me see your arms again." She slowly rolls up her sleeves, turning her head away as I look down at the angry marks covering her arms. "I'm so sorry for you. This is just shocking. You don't deserve to be treated like that, and by your own father. It's appalling." Although ironically, the reason I was outside at this hour is because I had a big argument with my father tonight too, so maybe there's something in the air. He would never hurt me though. his bark is worse than his bite. Thank you for joining me on this video, and if you've enjoyed this, please do put a comment in the box below. I always love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you'll receive notifications when I post new videos. I'm aiming to post them every Friday evening, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed preparing this video for you and giving you a little insight into my work, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.